everybody. This is Haimantika, a developer advocate from Hashnode, and we are very excited to kickstart this new series where we are inviting guests all across the technology world. We are inviting founders, co founders, software developers, developer advocates, open source maintainers, and we are talking about new technologies and how you can use in your day to day life. And this is the first ever episode that we are recording, and I'm very excited to invite on stage Rohit, who is the co-founder of portkey.ai. But that's about the episode, and now I'll have him on stage, and then we can get introduced to him. Hi, Rohit, how are you doing?
Hey,
And would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
absolutely. No, thanks so much for having me, Himatika. Hey, everybody, I'm Rohit. I'm the co-founder of Porteky. We started Porteky a year ago to be sort of DevOps for the AI world. Been a fantastic year for us. And I think it's also been a little bit crazy as it's always been in the AI space. No, but excited to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. It's so lovely to have you here, Rohit. And I'm also looking forward to our conversation as we get to learn more about you and the product that you have built. So, Rohit, before we start with Portkey, would you like to tell us a little bit about your experience or how did your entrepreneur journey start? I know like a lot of us might already want to be entrepreneurs, but how did that entire thing that it's not that one day you wake up and say, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur. There must have been a mindset. So, how did that all start? I want to hear your story.
Sure. Um, I would say I'm probably an accidental entrepreneur. I just have always gone with the flow, and that's how entrepreneurship sort of come to me. But so I was working on the school idea back in 2010 about visual collaboration, and that's when HTML5 CSS was very very new. And we sort of built a visual collaboration platform called FrameBench, and that was my first brace with entrepreneurship. So right out of college, set up a company, started building a product, and started selling. I think I say that was my compressed MBA. Learned a lot about product, technology,
Correct.
business, sales, everything together. So did that for 3 years. Then that startup got acquired by Freshworks. So I was at Freshworks for almost 5 years. Built platform engineering teams, then headed product for Freshdesk. And after that, that was a fantastic journey at Freshworks. I mean, I learned so much. I grew as a person and just learning from some of the best folks in the country. Um, I decided to then move to a smaller company to get back some of that entrepreneurial zeal I was itching for. So I was at this content marketing platform called Pepper for about 2 years. And I think just going through the entire AI journey at Freshworks and then at Pepper, I really felt that there was a very core problem in um, operational stuff for LLMs. And that's where started building a product, was again fortunate to get some amazing investors very early in our journey, and then just started building, and that's how it's been. So I'd say a lot of it has not been really planned, but it's been fun.
Hi everybody, it's me again. I'm really sorry for interrupting your watch time, but I'll take 60 seconds to show you how Hashnode for enterprises and teams can help you build the blogging solution for your company or for your needs. We have headless mode for team blogs, which means you can host a blog on your custom domain or on a subpath like slash blog. You have AI assisted writing free for all team members. You have features like real-time collaborative editing, inline commenting, member management with various roles, along with 99.9% uptime guarantee, custom SLAs and SSO, and premium support. We also have a Markdown powered editor, and you can share this draft link with authors on your team, and you can collaborate with real time like I have shared it with me, and both of you can collaborate, and this is how the cursor or the person's name will show up. You can also add inline comment for adding reviews. You just need to select the para, click on comment, and add comments like maybe shorten the para and click on enter. Not just this, we have also made member management very smooth and easy to use in a new dashboard. You can click on new link and you can customize it according to your role, usage limit, expiry date, and simply click on create link. Or you can also click on invite member and invite using an email address or a Hashnode username. And that's about the member management. If you feel this is something that you need, all you need to do is go down to our Hashnode for Enterprises website, click on request access, and it will open up a form like this with just three simple fields. You need to fill it up. Click on request access, and within 24 hours, our founders will be there showing you a demo of Hashnode Headless and also helping you get onboarded. So that's all. And now over to the rest of the video. Bye.
That's really amazing, and your journey has been so inspirational because you talked about how you started building something straight out of school, and that's, I think that's where your entire entrepreneurship thing and everything started. So it's really nice to know. And then you went back to working to corporate, and now you are into entrepreneurship full time, building a company. So that's really great to know about your journey, and I loved it. So now moving forward to about Porteky, I have mentioned that in the introduction, but I would love to know from the founder himself that what is Porteky, how did the idea come up, and again, like I love stories. I
Yeah.
would like to know what's the story behind Porteky, and later
Yeah.
I'd also like to know how did the name come up. So yeah, that's all
Sure.
from me.
100%. So, so in my previous company, we were building a GenAI application. This was scaling to almost 500,000 users. And as we did that, I think one of the most frustrating aspects of that was managing everything in production. You wouldn't believe we were one of the very heavy users at Retool, because we had built almost 40 odd applications on Retool to just manage our own GenAI deployment. And it was insane to think of something that when we did a POC with GenAI in almost 15 days, but then it took us almost a year to tame it and make it ready for production. And that, I think, was a very harrowing journey for me. um, but I think looking back, I can connect the dots to say that was awesome, because that's where we also learned how to really build the right ops platform for GenAI apps. And as more and more people started building it, we realized, hey, this is something that could be useful for others as well. So Porteky in its current avatar is the world's fastest AI gateway. So think of it as a unified API to connect to multiple models, manage traffic between them securely with access control, which is combined with a very strong observability platform specifically for LLM metrics. So that's what Porteky is about. The name comes from, so I think there is this angle of teleportation, and because the gateway sits in the middle of your application uh, and the AI models, so the teleportation aspect is what we wanted to use Portkey with. But there's definitely some hints of the Harry Potter connection as well. We're all fans of Harry Potter, love the series, and I think
Absolutely.
there was also a connotation there for what a Portkey is, the fastest way to get from point A to point B, and that sort of also
Wow.
fit into the narrative. So we said, okay, this is awesome.
That's really nice. I'm a Harry Potter fan myself, and whenever I hear its reference, I get pretty excited. So, like, it's really nice how you connected all the dots. Like, you kept in mind the technical aspects of things, but plus you also brought back your, Potter fan self, and then you had this name.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to know about that. So, yeah, like you mentioned the backstory, but like, since how long did you want to build Portkey, or were there a list of reasons that eventually made you think about building something like Portkey? Or a lot of times what happens, like I have been working at startups where they were using certain apps and they were like, okay, this app is not working, this is not built for developers like me. How about I start building a side project and then move it into a full-time project, and then finally turn down into a company? So did anything like that happen to Portkey, or how did it all start?
Yeah, I think with most developer products, that's sort of how it starts, right? You have this idea, you start thinking about it. So, in fact, it's interesting. So after I moved out of my previous company, I had this concept in mind saying that, hey, a lot of the problems that we've solved for, a lot of companies will face. And I had written a memo for myself saying, hey, over the next 6 months, I think all of this will happen in the AI world. If these things happen and then GPT-4 comes out, by then I think there'll be a lot of demand for what I want to build, and then I'll go in and build that. But I was totally on a break, saying, okay, I want to take a break. It's been 12 years of work, so let's do that.
Wow.
It just so happened that a month after I left, all hell broke loose in terms of GPT-4 launched, the new version of ChatGPT launched, multiple other players put their hat in the ring. And what I had expected would happen over 6 months happened in 6 weeks. So then I think because a lot of it played out to how we were thinking it would, it was just like a no-brainer to say, okay, then maybe we are getting a lot of these things right. Let's start building Portkey. But the idea was always to be this code developer. Let's build something open source. We'll see where it goes. But then we just
Absolutely.
had to accelerate and get stuff out faster.
I get that. And since you were mentioning about the open source part, so I guess that it was also, like you were building something for developers and then you transitioned into, okay, let's build a company. So how did that mindset come up? And, how did the transition happen from being an open source project and then changing into the, company side of things? Because I, as a
Yeah.
developer, I build a lot of these hacky projects over the weekend. And I'm sure that there are
Yes.
tens and thousands of developers like me who build over the weekend. Some of them do it for fun or to learn a new thing, or some of them are saying that, okay, this can be the next big idea for me. And so any advices that you have for budding entrepreneurs or for indie hackers even who are building on the side and they want to take the path of an entrepreneurship or build a company, so what are your advices or tips and tricks for
Yeah.
them?
Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe not advice, but I think two things that worked really well for us was one, we understood the problem space really well because having been done it and built something similar, we understood the problem statement very well. We didn't know what the solution would be, but the problem was very clear to our minds. I think the second thing happened was uh, we, in the first month of us thinking about the problem, we connected with a lot of founders who were also building AI apps and everybody was starting. And almost everybody was facing the same challenges, saying, yeah, I mean, this is hard to do. My users are telling me the AI doesn't work. It's unreliable. The API goes down. What do I do about it? And if I talk to, so we talked to 6 people and we just said, hey, would
Yeah.
if we build this, would you use it? And I mean, I'm very fortunate that a lot of them came back and said, yes, I mean, when are you giving it to me? So it was a very natural transition for us from being like a product to a company because we realized that there is potential. And if I talk to 10 people and 6 wanted to try it out, then it's probably the right track that we're thinking about. I think it's still very naive thinking. Developers, we tend to be a little more optimistic about stuff that we build, right? I'm sure with your
Yeah,
side projects, you're like, oh, this can be a large company one day. So I
absolutely.
think it's good to dream, it's good to build, but at the end of the day, we were like, okay, we're having fun building this. People want to use it. People will also pay for it. So I think there's a definite path to building a company around it. Now, how big does this get and how amazing it gets is something that depends on execution. But uh, I think again, I would say that validation and understanding of the problem space probably helped us quite a bit.
Absolutely. So that's very good advice, because a lot of times in our minds we think that, okay, this might be a good idea, but then having some context of, okay, what might the future might look like, or how can it actually solve real
Mm.
problems, or how many people are facing the problems that we are trying to solve is great. And it's also great to
Yeah.
know that you got connected to founders on the initial or the beginning days of Porteky, because that is also very important, especially when you're building a business, to get those feedback.
Mm.
I think that's unparalleled and is very valuable while building a company. So
Yeah.
that's about Portkey. But before I move to my next question, is there anything else that you want our viewers to know about the journey of Portkey, or your
Yeah.
journey, anything as such?
I think I just want to talk about. I think one of the most satisfying things for us has been open sourcing our AI gateway. So we were
True.
always like, I think as developers, we're a little bit more insecure about the code that we write. Think, hey, is this good enough to put out in open source? Will people really judge me for
Yeah.
this bad function that I've written? But I think in January when we took this decision saying, no, I think this is a good piece of software and people will really want to do it on their own and we'll get contributions. So we open sourced our AI gateway in January. And while there were other AI gateways also on the market, our differentiation was to be that we are extremely performant. So it was like 48 KB of file size. So on two vCPUs, you could run like thousands of RPS. And we felt that was insane, and nobody else was even doing it or even getting close to it. And that's when we open sourced it. I think it became quite popular. Um, And I think that also propelled us very fast into the developer world. So a lot of people
Correct.
started coming in with great suggestions, feedback, how should we build, etc. So I think both the motions started for us. Like people started noticing what we're doing. Also, we started getting great feedback from developers who looked at our code and said, okay, this is awesome, but hey, let's fix this as well. And I think that collaborative vision has been very, very helpful for us.
Absolutely. So I've been working at open source, like on open source projects or even open source companies for a while. And even at Hashnode, like we have our headless CMS or Hashnode for teams and enterprises. And we have a
Yeah.
starter kit that is open source and there's an API basically. And then we kind of had a hackathon, and not just a hackathon, but even a lot of developers come in and say, okay, hey, this is a theme that you already have, but this is a theme suggestion that I have. Or, okay, you are deploying it on XYZ the platform. How about we add a plugin to maybe a different platform? So the
Exactly.
contribution that we get from the community is something really amazing, especially in the initial days. It helps us so much to get feedback, to understand if we are going in the right direction or not. So I can
Yeah.
totally agree with you on that part of this
Yeah.
story.
It's this classic win-win with open source, right? The developers are getting
True.
something that they can build on and deploy themselves, and then they are
Yeah.
able to contribute back so that the overall product also becomes better. So I think it's a very interesting model.
Absolutely. So, since we are on the topic of open source, I'm sure that it's like the Porteky repository is also open for contributions. But are there any particular repositories or particular areas that you would like to highlight, so that when I am adding links
Mm.
during of this session, people can go and contribute? Or maybe you can also
Yeah.
walk through the top technologies that you are using at Porteky, or anything as
Mhm.
such that can help contributors understand and also get started with Portkey really fast.
Sure. Yeah. So Portkey, the AI gateway, which is open source, is built with TypeScript. We do compile it to a more faster version when we're running it in production. But from a contribution perspective, if you know how to write JavaScript or TypeScript, I think that's where you can get started. Uh, Definitely, I think there are a lot of open issues in Portkey. So if you have thoughts on what can be done and how can we make it better, that will be fantastic. Would really appreciate it. I think there's always lesser hands on deck than the issues that are open on GitHub. I think for every open source project, that's probably an issue. Outside of that, I would say that by the time this comes out, we would have launched something called plugins on the open source version, which essentially lets any developer extend the AI gateway for their use cases. So it's not just one use case, you can do a lot more stuff with plugins. And I think that might be an interesting area for people to explore. So if people have suggestions on plugins that we could build, or they want to team up to build a plugin for Portkey, I mean, we'd be more than happy to help.
That's great. So I think this is the first time that you are all hearing about plugins. Okay, Rohit, can I consider that this is the soft launch of the new release
In a
on
way.
this
Yeah.
podcast?
Yep.
Great, great. So, for the viewers, it's the first time you're hearing about the new launch, and I really hope that you can contribute something to Portkey, and also for your team, Rohit, you can get something valuable out of it. But I have a question that I'm always interested about. Being a maintainer of certain projects myself, I understand that how busy it can get for maintainers. So, how many of you are in the team, and how do you handle bugs, bug reports, or issues, or even releases? So, how that the entire does the entire cycle work out?
Yeah. So we're a very small team right now, Himantika. So we're 8 people in total. And I think the broader team is probably about 15 people. But from an engineering perspective, it's these 8 people who are constantly making sure that we are closing issues faster, fixing bugs. Because I think what's critical for us is that Portkey is very much a production grade tool. So companies that start to use it, if they face a problem, they're facing it in production. So and I want to touch wood here, but um, we've been like at 100% uptime for quite some time now. Uh, and even our open source versions, whenever something's come up, we've been able to fix it or release new features really, really fast. Um, but I think it's this very tiny team. When you're a small startup, and you might have seen this as well, things just move a lot faster because everybody has extremely high ownership of what they've built because their
Absolutely.
identity is sort of
Yeah.
attached to it. And I think that's what's been helping us. So I mean, you'll find me late into the night fixing bugs or pushing in code. And the minute I push it, there'll be another, of our lead engineers will be like, hey, this looks good, I'm reviewing it. So I think it's this commitment and urgency that leads to, very fast movement in development. And then again, I think we have some fantastic collaborators. I haven't maintained an open source repo before this, and I've been
Okay.
surprised by the kind of contributions that we get at times. Like people have rewritten entire implementations to make sure that it works really well for them. And we've been very fortunate, and we're grateful for those people to come in and start helping us out as well. And I think it's also the community, right? The more you engage in a community to build with you, the better it just becomes.
Exactly. So especially with open source, what happens is whenever, let's say if I'm contributing something and I see that the maintainers or people who are involved with the project or the company respond to me, or they are giving me some feedback or something on my PR, it immediately it makes me very excited to work or to contribute more. So I can totally understand about that part, and also the part that you mentioned that startups tend to move faster. So this very similar story with we have with Hashnode as well, that every new week there is either one new feature or enhancement that is being rolled out. And I also like this part that how most of the startups that cater to developers or developer plus audience, we all focus a lot on developer experience. I'm sure that's also very true about Portkey. So before I get into that question about how developers are using Portkey or the developer experience part of things, I would also like to touch upon AI. So AI, like machine learning and all of these terms has existed for a very long time, but it's only in the last 1 to 2 years that we are seeing it it's very rising very high, especially with Gen AI. Ever since ChatGPT, like they launched their GPT-3 and the 4 model, it's like every company is either integrating it in some form or the other, or even as developers, like I remember that there was an outage a few days back, and I was like, oh, how do I go back to googling things, or how do I make myself work without AI? Like indirectly or directly, we are getting used to using AI. So what are your thoughts on AI, or like how do you feel that the entire way you have built Portkey has been influenced by AI? So I would like to have your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think we are extremely heavy users of AI, and probably when I put my credit note in saying, okay, thanks to all of my engineers, I think the bigger thanks is to ChatGPT and GitHub Copilot and all of these tools, because I think the amount of work that all of us are able to do is probably like 3x, 4x faster than what we would do without these tools. So I think writing code, writing documentation, creating content, brainstorming, thinking about things. I think a lot of the problem statements that would just take time and be frustrating have been have been taken away by AI. I think it's also a matter of time that more companies start to adopt it. I think because we are in that space, we also know the best tools for each and everything. So we use a lot of our customers have amazing AI tools. We end up using a lot of them internally as well, which one gives them a testing platform, and two, we get to try the latest and the best in the market much earlier than others. So I think that way we are also very receptive as a team to AI. I don't think it's taking away jobs. I think it's making me love my job a lot more because I don't do the boring stuff anymore. I think that's the part which people like a lot.
Absolutely, I totally agree on that. So, like at Hashnode, we had AI. Like we did had, and it was for pro users. And then very recently, we were like, okay, we are going to make AI free for all the users, and the pro users would get more higher speed or access to like the paid model of GPT and all of those things. But as soon as we did that, and when even I started using AI, and I was saying, okay, I'm writing much faster because like it's helping me. Let's say. Even a simple thing like an alt text, I would spend maybe 30 seconds thinking about what is a good alt text, but now I'm like, okay, clicking a button and then AI is doing it for me. Or then even for what is a title that is very suitable for SEO, so I'm like, okay, I'm clicking a button and AI is doing it for me. But one thing, like the entire thing that or the taboo that lies behind AI is because people there is a scare that people might be dependent on AI totally. what I believe is like we should use it as a companion and not somebody who is doing a job, but
Yeah.
maybe who is making us smarter or faster at the things that we do. So I totally agree on that part.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I think the
Yeah.
one thing though is I like I think we will get crippled to some extent because of this. And I think it's fine because a lot of, I remember when people started Googling for code and copy pasting stuff, the
Yeah.
hardcore developers would be like, no, this is bad for you because you won't learn how to code. Then Stack
Correct.
Overflow came along and everybody started copy pasting from Stack Overflow. And people were like, oh no,
Yeah.
this is bad. You'll never be a good developer. And now you have AI, which is
Correct.
like 10x more powerful. And we're like, oh, let's
Yeah.
not get crippled. I think it's just about there'll be better things that keep coming up. And
Absolutely.
finally, we'll get to a stage where we don't have to write lengthy programs for a computer to understand us. We can just
Yeah.
talk to it and it'll understand and probably create stuff for us. I think that will be the awesomest part of this, wherein we are not
Yeah.
learning how to program, but the computer learns how to talk to us. I think that's what I'm waiting for.
Exactly. Exactly. So, like all this while, we learned how to, talk to machines in their language, and now we are asking machines to talk to us in their language. So, I think that's the uno
Yeah.
reverse part that we are having,
Yeah.
and I totally love this part because it amazes me because if unconsciously, like I was mentioning, that unconsciously I am dependent on AI for the tasks that would take me a big chunk of my time previously. So, I am all up for soaking in the technology goodness that we are getting. So we still have some more time left for a chat, so I think I'll divert the topic back to Portkey again. So tell us that how are developers or even enterprises using Portkey? I see that there is and you even talked about there's an interesting intersection between the observability part and also the AI part. So maybe give us some use cases, or if you want to give some tips that will make the engineering process or the development process faster for developers. I'm all ears to know that how can one use Portkey, or how are people already using Portkey.
Right, right. I'd love to quote this cookbook that just came out. This awesome guy Satvik just posted out a cookbook that said, "Hey, we are all doing a vibe check with these top 10 LMSS models, but how do I test it with my own prompt?" So, developers have their own prompts. They've it's working well on OpenAI, but then I'm sure people are telling them that hey, Gemini is better, or you should try Mistral for this use case. It's better. So with Portkey, what it allows you to do is you can have a unified API to talk to any of these vendors. So what this cookbook does is it actually uses your prompt and makes requests to all of these 10 LMSS providers automatically. And the pace at which you can do this is fantastic. And I think that's the best developer experience. I don't have to integrate 10 different SDKs, learn that Mistral does not support this parameter, but OpenAI supports this parameter. I can automatically direct traffic accordingly. So I think that is probably one of the biggest factors because of which people really like what they see with Portkey. And I think the second bit is just getting visibility into every call that you're doing. I think in AI, if you don't have an observability platform, and I'm not even saying Portkey, anything, but if you don't have a good observability platform, you're sort of just flying blind. You can look at the request and the response, but because it's so hard to digest all of this information, you will forever just be like, oh, it works awesomely, or no, it doesn't work for me at all. And I think neither of them will ever be true. You'll always arrive at
Sure.
it works 75% of the times. But to do that, you need observability. So I would say it's a mixture of these two things, the unified API and then visibility, that's really been something that almost every developer uses when they try Portkey.
That's really nice. And I think you talked about the use cases, but are there any tips or anything that you would like if you ask me what is my favorite feature or something at Hashnode, I'll probably say GitHub backups or something like that. But if you would
Yeah.
say that there's one hero feature, or there might be multiple hero features, but is there anything else that you would like to highlight, or you would suggest developers that, hey, if you're using Portkey, this is something that you should try
Yeah.
or you should integrate while you're building a software? So what's
Yeah.
that one thing, or maybe two things?
Yeah, maybe. So I think one thing that I like quite a bit, and it's probably the tiniest button in Portkey, is this something called replay. So whenever I'm seeing logs come into Portkey, and I see a problem that hey, this user did not have a good experience, I can just click on this button called replay, and Portkey sets up this entire environment for me which this was the model, this was the prompt, this was the conversation. And if you want to try it out and make changes, you can do it right there. So I think this is this nice virtual environment where I can immediately go in place of a user and understand what the user was doing and what could I have done better as an AI company to solve the use case. So I think replay for me is, uh, I don't think we talk about it as much, but replay is probably one of the most powerful features I feel in Porteky.
That's amazing. So, like a lot of times these platforms, they have that one small thing that changes the whole feel or the experience of the platform. So really glad
Yeah.
that you brought this one up. And as we are finishing, I would like to ask you that what's next for Portkey? You already gave us a sneak peek, but I'm also looking forward to maybe what are the upcoming things that developers or even users in general can look up to or look forward to Portkey releasing. So any sneak peeks on that?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, plugins is going to be big for us, and the use cases that plugins will bring will be like multifaceted. And as the next week comes about, we will talk about these use cases about plugins and what can you do. We are also building some really cool partnerships. So we recently partnered with Nginx to see how an AI gateway works with an API gateway. So that's a partnership that I'm really excited about. We are also announcing probably 5 more partnerships in the next month, and I think I'm actually excited for all of them because all of these companies are pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI, and I think just coming together is this better together story. So I think anybody who's using Portkey will see a lot more depth in the product, a lot wider ecosystem around Portkey, and obviously a lot more open source as well.
Absolutely, I love that, and I'm very excited that about the partnerships that you just mentioned, and I'm also very happy for you and the team for bagging this partnership. It's huge. I can understand. I can already feel very excited for you. So a big congratulations on that. And my last question is if there is anything else that you would like to mention, anything, it can be related to Portkey or anything about entrepreneurship, anything that you want to be your ending note for this podcast.
No, I've I think it's been fantastic just talking to you, Haimantika, and I know this is the first episode of this podcast, so wish you all the best.
Yeah,
And I'm hoping that
thanks.
a lot of the people who are listening into this probably got something interesting out of it. But if there's anything else that you would like to know about it, about Portkey or the AI space in general, I'm usually very available on LinkedIn or Twitter and happy to connect with folks.
Amazing. I love that. And Rohit, thank you so much for taking out time on a Friday to have a chat with me. It was lovely to talk to you, to learn from your experiences, to know your story, and to also know about Portkey. I'll be adding all the links about everything that you mentioned in the description below so that our viewers can check it out. And I'm sure they'll love it. And you'll also have some good feedback or maybe even some contributions on the repository. So I'm very excited for that. And with that, we will be ending this podcast. And once again, a big thank you for all of you who tuned in with us. And also, lastly, a big thank you to you, Rohit, as well. And with that, I'll call it a close and I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye.
Thanks so much. Bye.